Let's do a blood covenant, a promise that even in death, we will return to each other. Moko was taken aback by her suggestion, but he could see the determination and love in her eyes. A blood covenant. He repeated, trying to grasp the gravity of her words. In the grand kingdom of Madi, there lived a girl named Amora. She was the cherished daughter of Lord Kofi, the wealthiest and most influential man in the land. Their home was a magnificent castle. Kofi's wealth was so immense that even the king of Madi sometimes borrowed money from him. Kofi was a proud, arrogant, and the most feared man in the land. Convinced of his superiority, he rejected countless suitors who came to court Amora, dismissing them as unworthy of his daughter's hand. Believing that only a man of his own caliber, someone who could uphold the family's grandeur and influence, was worthy of his daughter, Amora grew increasingly frustrated with her father's stubbornness. One evening, after yet another suitor had been dismissed, Amora confronted Kofi. "Father, why do you always dismiss my suitors? I am tired of your arrogance and your refusal to see beyond wealth and status." Kofi looked at her with a cold, unyielding gaze. "Amora, I did not train you to marry a poor man. I did not acquire my wealth for some gold digger to come reap where they did not sow after I am gone. Any man who wishes to marry you must be as rich as I am." Amora's face flushed with anger. "So, you would rather I remain unmarried than marry someone who does not meet your standards? What about love and companionship?" Kofi's tone was resolute. "Love and companionship are well and good, but they do not sustain the family's position or fortune. The man who marries you must be capable of upholding our status, not diminishing it." Amora's frustration was palpable, but she knew she could not change her father's mind. One evening, as the laborers who had worked on Kofi's farmlands came for their daily wages, a young man named Moko stood among them. Moko was very handsome and masculine, with a strong presence. Amora found herself continuously staring at him with admiration. Moko, catching sight of her gaze, felt a growing discomfort. He realized where he was and the potential consequences if Kofi were to find out he had even looked at Amora, let alone engaged in any conversation with her. The thought of incurring Kofi's wrath made Moko shift uneasily. As Moko finished receiving his wages and prepared to leave, Amora quickly sent her maid to him with a message. The maid hurried to Moko, her voice urgent and discreet. "Please, Moko, my lady requests your presence tonight. She wishes to meet you when the moon rises, under the mango tree near the village square." Moko surprised at first, but his initial surprise turned to concern as he processed the maid's message. The gravity of the situation weighed heavily on him. He turned to the maid with a worried expression. "Please, tell me if I've done something wrong," Moko asked, his voice tinged with anxiety. "I am just a poor farmer, and I don't wish to incur any trouble. If I have offended Lady Amora in any way, please, beg her forgiveness on my behalf." The maid's eyes softened with understanding. She could see the genuine fear in Moko's eyes and the respect he held for Amora. "I assure you, Moko, you have done nothing wrong. My lady simply wishes to speak with you." Moko's worry was palpable as he listened to the maid's explanation. He took a moment to gather his thoughts, then spoke with a hesitant tone. "I will be there as requested." As the moon began its ascent, casting its silver light over the village square, Amora arrived at the mango tree with a heart full of anticipation, her eyes searching the shadows for any sign of Moko. Time seemed to stretch endlessly as she waited, her excitement slowly giving way to nervousness. The gentle rustling of the mango tree's leaves and the distant sounds of the night filled the silence as the minutes ticked by. Seeing Amora's forlorn expression, the maid gently approached her. "My lady, I am sorry to see that Moko did not arrive," she said softly. "We should return to the castle before your father notices your absence. It's important to avoid any trouble that might arise from your late return." As they walked back to the castle, Amora's frustration erupted. She turned to her maid, her face flushed. "I know why he didn't show up. He's scared of my father. Anyone who defies him gets punished or dismissed." "My lady," she began gently, "I understand your frustration and disappointment. But may I ask, why Moko? Why not consider one of the suitors recommended by your father? At least that way, you might find some peace with him." Amora's frustration flared. "It's not about pleasing my father," she said, her voice trembling. "I want someone who sees me for who I am, not just as a prize." I hoped Moko, despite his humble background, might understand that. "I fell in love with Moko the instant I saw him," she admitted quietly, her voice filled with a mix of longing and sadness. "There's something about him that makes me feel genuinely happy, something I haven't felt with anyone else." The next morning, as the sun cast its first light over the village, Moko made his way to the usual spot where the laborers collected their wages. He was still troubled by the previous night's events, feeling a mix of regret and anxiety over his decision not to meet Amora. As he approached the payment area, he was startled to see Amora walking toward him. Her presence was unexpected and her expression serious. Moko's heart skipped a beat, and he felt a pang of guilt. "Good morning, Moko," Amora said, her voice steady but laced with a hint of frustration. "I wanted to speak with you about last night. Why did you not show up?" Moko looked down, feeling the weight of her gaze. "My lady, I am truly sorry. I was afraid of what your father might do if he found out. I didn't want to risk incurring his wrath or bringing trouble upon myself." Amora looked at Moko with a mixture of sadness and resolve. "I understand your fear, Moko," she said softly, her voice carrying a note of sincerity. "But I just wanted to get to know you, to understand who you are beyond the constraints of your circumstances." Moko met her gaze, feeling a flicker of hope amidst his apprehension. "My lady." "Please," Amora interrupted gently. "Let's meet again tonight, at the same place, the mango tree near the village square. I would like to talk with you more, away from the pressures of the day." Moko hesitated for a moment, weighing the risks against his desire to see Amora again. Finally, he nodded, a sense of determination in his eyes. "Very well, my lady. I will be there." As the moon rose high in the sky, casting its gentle light over the village square, the night air was cool and still, the leaves of the tree rustling softly in the breeze. Amora was already there, her presence illuminated by the moonlight. She turned as Moko approached, a smile spreading across her face. Moko bowed respectfully, his voice filled with a blend of respect and curiosity. "My lady," he began, "what can a poor farmer like me do for you? Why have you requested we meet here tonight?" "Please, Moko," she said softly, "stop referring to yourself as poor. I see you as a man with so much potential and a great future ahead of him. Your worth is not defined by wealth, but by your character and the goodness within you." Moko's eyes widened in surprise at her words. "My lady, I..." Amora took a step closer, her voice filled with emotion. "And Moko, just so you know, you are the only one my heart yearns for. I like you, Moko. I like you for who you are, not for what you have." Moko felt a rush of emotions surge through him, a sudden and overwhelming feeling of love. His heart pounded, and he struggled to find the right words to express what he felt. From then on, Amora and Moko met secretly under the mango tree every night. Their moonlit rendezvous became a haven for whispered confessions, shared dreams, and heartfelt promises, away from watchful eyes. Amora felt a profound sense of joy and fulfillment during these nights, the pounding of her heart a testament to the love she had long sought. One night, as the moon cast its silver light over the mango tree, Amora and Moko sat close together. Amora looked into Moko's eyes, her expression serious. "Moko, promise me something," she began. "Promise me that you will never leave me, no matter what happens." Moko's brow furrowed with concern. "Amora, why would you even think I could leave you? You are the one my heart belongs to. I promise, I will never leave you." "I believe you, Moko, but I want to make sure that nothing can ever separate us. Let's do a blood covenant, a promise that even in death, we will return to each other." Moko was taken aback by her suggestion, but he could see the determination and love in her eyes. "A blood covenant," he repeated, trying to grasp the gravity of her words. "Yes," Amora said, her voice unwavering. "It's a sacred bond that will tie our souls together forever. No matter what happens, we will always find our way back to each other." Moko's heart swelled with emotion at her words. "I can't imagine myself without you, Amora. If the blood covenant will keep us glued together for eternity, then I am ready to make any commitment." Just as their hands bound together, sealing their promise with their mingled blood, a sudden thunderclap echoed through the night sky. The thunder and lightning seemed to signify the power and intensity of their bond, as if nature itself acknowledged and blessed their covenant. 2 months later, as the secret meetings continued to deepen their bond, Amora felt a growing determination to take their relationship to the next level. One evening, under the familiar mango tree, she looked at Moko. "Moko," she began softly, "I want you to come and ask for my hand in marriage." Moko's eyes widened in surprise. "Mora, do you understand what you're asking? Your father only wants suitors of his own affluence. I stand no chance against his expectations." "I know, Moko. I will give you some money to buy clothes that befit royalty and class. Let me finish. I also want you to have some presents for my father. If you show him respect and make an effort to meet his expectations, it might make him more receptive to your request. Moko, once my father approves of you and blesses our union, we need to act quickly," she said. "Before he has a chance to discover who you really are and the obstacles we face, we should run away together. We can start a new life, free from the constraints and expectations that have bound us." Moko looked at her, his heart pounding with a mix of excitement and trepidation. "You really think we should do this? Run away, just the two of us?" "Yes, Moko," she replied. A few nights later, Moko arrived at Kofi's grand compound, dressed in his newly acquired royal attire. His outfit was luxurious, adorned with intricate patterns and fabrics that exuded an air of nobility. He carried with him a selection of carefully chosen gifts, each meant to impress and convey his respect. The guards, recognizing the opulence of his attire and the significance of his gifts, ushered him inside and informed Lord Kofi of his arrival. When Lord Kofi entered the audience chamber to meet Moko, Coffee regarded Moko with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. The sight of the finely dressed young man and the impressive gifts intrigued him. He gestured for Moko to rise as he bowed to greet him. Moko took a deep breath and addressed Lord Coffee with a mix of confidence and respect. "My Lord Coffee, I have come bearing these gifts to seek your daughter's hand in marriage. I wanted to demonstrate my sincere intentions and my respect for your family." As Lord Coffee examined the gifts presented by Moko, his expression shifted from one of skepticism to intrigue. In his mind, Coffee thought, this young man must be from a reputable family to have come bearing such impressive gifts. Perhaps he is more than he initially appeared. Coffee's curiosity was piqued, and he became more interested in Moko. The realization that Moko might have connections or resources of his own. As Moko and Lord Coffee engaged in conversation, discussing the way forward and sharing a few light-hearted moments, the atmosphere in the room became more relaxed and cordial. Coffee's demeanor had softened, and he appeared genuinely interested in Moko's background and intentions. Just then, the sound of footsteps and voices outside signaled the arrival of the farmers, coming to collect their wages as they did every evening. As the farmers passed through the courtyard, one of them, a familiar face to Moko, noticed him. The farmer's eyes widened in recognition, and he called out loudly, "Moko, is that you?" Coffee raised an eyebrow, his interest now more keenly focused on Moko. "You know this man?" As the farmer called out Moko's name, his voice echoing through the courtyard, other laborers who were gathering to collect their wages began to notice. One by one, they turned their heads and recognized Moko, their curiosity piqued. "Moko, there you are!" one of the laborers exclaimed, making his way toward him. "Why didn't you show up at the farm today?" The question was quickly taken up by the others. "Yes, Moko, we were all wondering where you were. You missed a long day of work." As the laborers began to disperse, Lord Coffee, intrigued by the new information, decided to probe further. He turned to one of the laborers who had been among the group that recognized Moko. "Do you know this young man?" Coffee asked, his tone authoritative yet curious. The laborer looked at Coffee with a mixture of respect and familiarity. "Yes, my lord," he replied. "Moko is one of us. He works alongside us on the farm. We've known him for years now." Coffee's face darkened with realization. The initial intrigue turned to cold fury as he comprehended the situation. He stood abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. Guards Coffee's voice thundered through the chamber, startling everyone present. "Seize this man immediately." As the guards began to drag Moko away, a loud cry echoed through the courtyard. "Father, no!" Amora, who had been hiding and watching the entire event unfold, ran out from her hiding place. Tears streamed down her face as she rushed to Moko's side, her emotions a torrent of desperation and fear. "Please, Father, don't do this," Amora cried, her voice breaking with anguish. "Moko is the man I love. I beg you, don't harm him." As the guards tightened their grip on Moko and began to drag him away, she rushed forward, throwing herself in front of Moko, shielding him with her own body. As the tension in the courtyard escalated, Moko, deep in fear and confusion, saw a brief opportunity to escape. He made a sudden move to break free from the guards, his instincts driving him to flee the impending danger. Lord Coffee, his temper flaring uncontrollably, saw Moko's attempt to escape as a blatant defiance. In a moment of blind rage, he grabbed a gun from one of the guards, his hand trembling with fury. "Stop right there," Coffee shouted, his voice echoing through the courtyard. Without thinking, he aimed the gun at Moko, his vision clouded by anger. Amora, seeing the danger and driven by her love and instinct to protect Moko, rushed forward with a desperate cry. "No, father, don't." Before anyone could react, Coffee pulled the trigger. The deafening sound of the gunshot rang through the air. Amora threw herself in front of Moko, her body acting as a shield. The bullet struck her, and she crumpled to the ground, a look of shock and pain on her face. "Amora!" Moko screamed, his voice filled with anguish as he dropped to his knees beside her. He cradled her in his arms, tears streaming down his face. "No, please, no." Lord Coffee stood frozen, the gun falling from his grasp as the reality of what he had done sank in. "Amora!" "No," he whispered, his face ashen and eyes wide with horror. Overwhelmed with grief and regret, fell to his knees beside them. "Amora, my daughter. What have I done?" he cried, his voice breaking. Suddenly, the moment of grief was shattered by Lord Coffee's commanding voice, filled with a mixture of anguish and fury. "Guards, seize that man." The guards, hesitant at first due to the tragic scene, moved to apprehend Moko. They grabbed him roughly, pulling him away from Amora's lifeless body. As Moko was being dragged away, he shouted desperately, "Amora! Remember the promise you made to me, to be with me for eternity. Please, Amora, come back to me." Amora, lying on the ground, her breath shallow and weak, heard Moko's desperate plea. Her eyes fluttered open briefly as she watched Moko being dragged away, could not respond as she draws her last breath. Amora's spirit, now free from her lifeless body, floated near the mango tree where she and Moko had shared their special moments. She glowed softly in the moonlight, her heart aching with a deep longing that went beyond life and death. She floated aimlessly, her longing and uncertainty evident as she struggled to find a way to return to Moko. For the next 2 days, Amora's spirit wandered restlessly through the village. She felt an unsettling mix of confusion and longing, unsure of how to navigate her current state. The world around her seemed both familiar and foreign, and she struggled to grasp the reality of her situation. Just as Amora felt a surge of energy within her, a loud cry echoed from afar, cutting through the stillness of the night. Her heart raced, and she felt an urgent pull toward the source of the sound. In the center of the gathering, a young man lay lifeless on the ground, his family weeping uncontrollably around him. Amora looked around frantically to find the young man's spirit, but to her dismay, it had vanished, leaving his body lifeless on the ground. Amora, driven by her unwavering love and covenant with Moko, felt a surge of determination. She knew she needed to return to the land of the living to fulfill her promise. An idea began to form in her mind, a risky and desperate idea. Amora's eyes locked onto the lifeless body of the young man, her heart racing with resolve. With a deep breath, she thrust her spirit into him. In an explosive burst of light, his body jolted awake, gasping for air. Amora's soul now pulsed with his heartbeat, her mission clear. She was alive again, but in a body of a man.